Alright, this is an introduction for lab number 3, and for this particular lab, I will admit that it is a little on the weak side. It's a little too easy, but, kind of is what it is. It's the best I was able to do. What I want you to do is launch a projectile, not at your younger sibling, please, and then sketch the velocity vectors, preferably in component form, just after it leaves your hands, at the top of its motion, and just before it hits the ground. So there is plenty of room right here to do so, and for some reason people always seem to forget to do that, so please don't. Then you're going to go to the website right here. It's the PhET website, and they have wonderful simulations. I highly recommend playing around with their simulations. And all I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you set the angle to 40 degrees, leave that at 15 meters per second. I want you to make sure that air resistance is not checked, and I want you to set this to slow so you can kind of see what's happening as it does its thing. Then I'm going to have you check the velocity vectors components box and fire the projectile. I want you to record your observations about the horizontal and vertical components and talk about why they do or do not change. I want you to talk about why the trajectory, the position versus time, is a parabola, and you should be able to do that from the previous lab. Then I want you to uncheck the velocity vector components box and check the acceleration component box. More or less do the same thing. Record your observations about the components. So you can kind of see these boxes. They are pretty straightforward. There's the velocity vectors, and so I want you to fire the cannon, and then I want you to do the components for the acceleration. Then all I'm going to have you do is calculate the impact distance and calculate the maximum height. Yes, I know that the simulation does tell you them. I want you to use the tool to record these things, but I do want you to show me your work for calculating them, because that's how you get good at things. So I'll go ahead and fire the projectile, and how you can calculate these guys is you can just drag this thing after the simulation is done at any given point, and you can measure the time and the range. Something I do want you to note is that the mass does not matter. A tank shell is going to take the same exact path as the pumpkin will, or any other object will, as long as we're not, worrying about air resistance. Then all I'm going to have you do is just mess around with the angle and mess around with the height of the platform. I do want you to predict where to place the target and place the target there. Yes, you do need to show your work. I want you to predict the maximum height, and again, you must show your work and then prove to yourself that you were actually right. If you were not right, then I would highly recommend that you go back into your work and you look for the mistake. With that said, this lab is pretty straightforward.